Hi everybody, Joe Malarkey with Malarkey 365. I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day, and someone made an odd statement. They said, well, everyone in the security industry knows that there's 1,000 ways to disable Windows Defender. Obviously, that's incorrect, but it got me thinking. And so today we're going to talk about Windows Defender. Well, not just Windows Defender, Defender, because that's the umbrella service, Defender for Endpoint more specifically in this case, which includes, we presume, the Windows Defender, Defender Tamper Protection. So Tamper Protection is something that we can turn on in the Windows operating system, also the Macintosh, but we're going to focus on the Windows operating system for now. Tamper Protection is something that when enabled in Windows does not allow someone, an administrator, to disable a lot of the Defender features that are on Windows, including, of course, Windows Defender, the always-on protection, exclusions, a lot of these things, the Sense application, the Windows Defender for Endpoint application itself. So it keeps administrators, users from disabling this stuff to get around Windows Defender. What would the point be if you could easily disable any component of Defender operating on the Windows operating system? What would the point be if you, as an administrator, could just turn that off? And most other antivirus and managed detection and response EDR systems, MDX, whatever they call themselves, on that get installed on Windows, they'll be installed this way, so you cannot easily turn them off. In the case of Microsoft's Defender Tamper Protection, the Tamper Protection itself relies upstream on a driver, a file driver that itself keeps Tamper Protection from being turned off, and in turn Tamper Protection keeps the antivirus and a bunch of other features from being turned off. So you'd actually have to get to that file system driver to somehow disable it. And actually, when this first came out a few years ago, I think in 2023, someone came up with a way to do that. They used something called altitude values. And altitude values is basically preference for when drivers start. And apparently if you just deleted one of those, so it got confused, you could confuse it enough to where this background file driver, this driver, didn't start, and then Tamper Protection wouldn't be protected, and you could turn that off, and then you can, obviously cascading down, turn everything else off. Well, that was told to Microsoft. Microsoft fixed that, so you can't do that anymore. But again, this is one of those learning things. It's 2025. That was 2 years ago, and I haven't seen any easy way to, or even difficult way to disable the Tamper Protection. So let's go through a few slides because I find that's probably easier. We'll talk about how to enable it, a little bit on testing it. I'll put some stuff in the descriptions so that you can actually do this on your own. There's some other sources on the internet that I would like to give credit to. A lot of good work being done out there. So let's go through a couple of bullet points, some pictures, so I can show you what this looks like as well. Okay, I have my necessary prescription glasses on. Let's talk about some features of Tamper Protection first. Once again, I'm a PowerPoint guy, so I have my PowerPoint slides here. Virus and threat protection remains enabled. Yeah, these are things you just can't turn these off when a machine is protected with Tamper Protection. So we also assume that we're sending down an antivirus policy via Intune or via some other method. We always prefer Intune because that's the cloud delivered way, the modern way to do things. So once we've turned that on, an admin on the machine can't just turn it off. Real-time protection, that remains on. Behavior monitoring remains on. Any antivirus protection remains enabled. Cloud protection, sending stuff to the cloud, part of the Defender for Endpoint feature set, is enabled. Security intelligence updates, automatic actions for threat detections, notifications will remain visible. Again, we can control these through an Intune policy if we like. Archive files, of course, are scanned. Exclusions can't be modified or added. Well, yeah. You actually need another thing enabled for that to happen. Now, tamper protection is just like, check, tamper protection is on. However, tamper protection would still allow the local administrator on the machine to merge their antivirus preferences with the cloud-delivered ones by default. You want to make sure you turn that off as well. You disable local admin merge. And I'll show you how to do that in a second, because part of that is adding or removing exclusions. And once again, if I can add an entire folder and say this folder is excluded from PowerShell checking. Well, okay, well, that's not good, right? So that's important. You have to make sure that the admin merge has also been disabled. Tamper protection does not automatically do that. It's the one thing it doesn't automatically do. All right, moving right along. I put this in here because the first thing people complain about or talk about is, what if I need to do something? Oh, you know, people are calling me, they're freaking out, they can't manage something, they need to install something. The installer looks like a virus, it's not being allowed to run. I need to run a PowerShell script, it's being stopped for some reason because it looks malicious. Okay, fine. Inside of Defender for Endpoint, in the security portal, you have the ability, once you find a device in there, to put that device into troubleshooting mode. You select the device. In the upper right, you got a little, big menu system. One of the options is to turn on troubleshooting mode on that device. When you do that, that actually allows local administrators to do stuff like they can turn off tamper protection, they can disable the antivirus, they can add exclusions, all these kinds of things. But you actually have to send that to the device from the Defender portal. And it lasts 4 hours. At the end of 4 hours, anything the local administrator did, provided we have merging turned off, all that stuff gets wiped out. It goes right back to the way it was. So remember troubleshooting mode. If you need to temporarily disable this, do not disable tamper protection temporarily. First of all, it'll take a little while for that setting to take effect because that's an Intune setting, and you certainly don't want to disable it for the whole company or more than one device. So troubleshooting mode is the way to do it. So that's how you temporarily disable it. I have a little note in here. It could take up to 15 minutes for that to become active. I have not seen it take that long. Usually it happens very quickly, but Microsoft is always letting people know it might take a little while. So while in troubleshooting mode, you can turn things off. Couple of different ways. Set MP preference as a PowerShell method. Disable tamper protection. $2, it's a Boolean value. And then enable network protection. You can disable that. That's just a couple of examples. You can do a whole lot more with that. All right, moving along. Enabling tamper protection. How do you enable it? You have two choices. A global, everybody gets it way, and a more specific way. The global way is to do it through the security center, the Defender portal, through settings on the bottom left, and then endpoint settings. It's one of the advanced settings. I'll show you a picture of it in a second. And it's very clear, tamper protection, on, not, or off. So you can do it there. That's everybody, though. If you want to be more specific, you can do it through Intune. It's going to be in the endpoint security part of Intune, in the antivirus part of that. And it's not an antivirus policy. It's a security experience policy. So when you click on the down arrows and you're choosing, the platform is Windows and the type of policy, it's not going to be an antivirus. It's not going to be exclusion policy, antivirus exclusion. It's going to be, there's 4 of them in there. I forget what the third one is, but this one's called Intune security policy, or just security policy, or security experience. I'm sorry. The word experience is in there. You go in there and very clear. Tamper protection is part of that, so you can target it at certain devices. Again, make sure you disable admin merge. That will get done in the regular antivirus policy. And exclusions, that gets done in the regular antivirus policy, or you could create an exclusion policy. Now, Microsoft says you have to have sent out an exclusion policy, either with the antivirus or its own separate one, in order for that to work. Seems like it works either way, but I throw that in there because Microsoft says to do it. You'll probably have an exclusion here or there. The device needs to know, though, that exclusions are being managed via Intune. And that's the point they're trying to make. So I always have exclusions, so it works just fine as long as you have one. It seems to work without any, but I don't want to make that promise. All right, here's the Defender Portal method. Inside of the security.microsoft.com, on the left, you'll go under System, and then Settings, and you'll find Endpoints as one of the settings, and then under Endpoints, Advanced Features, and then there we have Tamper Protection. In my image here, it's off, but obviously we would turn that on. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is via Intune under Endpoint Security. Under antivirus, you would create a Windows security experience. Inside of that, over on the right here, I got the actual setting, Tamper Protection. You just turn it on. Easy enough. There's a bunch of other stuff in there, like do you want the users to see the security UI? That's up to you. You can go through those settings later. They're not for this video. All right, so 2 different ways to do it. I would caution you against doing it both ways because then that gets confusing. So pick one way or the other. Intune way is harder because then you got to choose who gets it, who doesn't. Disabling admin merge. This is done through an antivirus policy, and this is same place, only you choose antivirus policy. And it's very clear in here, disable local admin merge. And if you remember from previous videos, Microsoft has this bad habit of putting disable this or enable that, and then the value will be disabled or enabled. And you're like, wait a minute, does that mean it's disabling it, or is that disabling the disabling? It's very confusing, right? Well, this is one that's not too confusing because the value itself doesn't just say disable, it says disable local admin merge. That's going to disable it, okay? So that's not the same as those other weird ones where you're disabling the disabling. This one is clear. Disable local admin merge. That's what you get for the drop down. Okay, so make sure you do that so that administrators on the device can't be modifying things like exclusions. They can modify some settings in there. They can't turn the whole thing off, but they can modify enough to weaken the security to be able to get around the protection. Now, you might want that to be the case, so it's up to you, but in general, you should be disabling the admin merge. All right, so I put a little slide in here for how it works. Now, this is a great little snippet from a website that I want to give a shout out to, alteredsecurity.com. Defender works via a WD filter file driver. It's a driver that starts very early in the boot process. That's the thing that protects the tamper protection. Tamper protection then protects all the other stuff. Okay? So again, I mentioned one way that that in fact this website had found to disable it, and then Microsoft fixed that. So I'll put this link in the description. All right, so testing it. Well, you can go into the Security Center. You'll see Windows antivirus. Click on antivirus. You can manage some settings in there. You'll see a setting right in there called Tamper Protection. You can try and turn it off, but it'll say this is being managed by your company. There is registry setting you can go into and try and and change that. There's a PowerShell set MP preference that I have displayed here as an example. So there's a few different ways to do it. I have put in here a link, and I'll put this link in the description as well. This is another place, Learning Kaijo. I don't know how you say that. But this person created a script that would attempt to add exclusions and turn off tamper protection and a bunch of other cool things that you can see. In fact, this script, if you have tamper protection turned on properly, will actually perform in a way that creates a Defender alert inside of the alert portal. So you'll actually see, tamper protection was someone attempted to turn tamper protection off. So it's actually a really good test. Now, I make no claims about this. I've used it, worked for me, but make sure you go through this script diligently. Don't trust me. That's my NDA or whatever, or my disclaimer, whatever you want to call it. All right. So again, this is what the tamper protection looks like on the left inside of the security center. And over on the right, if you want to see this feature and a few other features, if you go under and you can see the path to it, HQ local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows Defender, and then features, tamper protection is a feature. The value 5 means it's enabled. Value 0 means it's disabled. I don't know what the other values are. Underneath that, you see the source 40. When it's off, the source is 04, which probably just means local. Who knows? Who cares? I imagine it would matter if you're doing it through other methods like Configuration Manager, but we're just doing it through Intune. So that's the value you want to see. You couldn't turn that off anyway, even if you had disabled the file system driver. You'd actually have to take ownership over that key, and then you could try and modify. But you can try that. Should not be able to do that. All right. So a couple quick notes on enabling, looking at it, testing it, and that's pretty much it. I found it very solid. Okay, everybody. So that's it. Tamper protection. Make sure you have that turned on if you're using Defender for Endpoint. Okay, along with the Windows Defender configured on the device. You can configure it through Intune or Windows Security Center, the Unified Security Center, the Defender portal, whatever you or Microsoft or anyone else might be calling it right now, security.microsoft.com. So turn it on either there in the Defender in the portal globally or via Intune. Also, make sure that you've sent down your antivirus policies via Intune and do that admin disabling the local admin merge as well to make sure local administrators cannot modify how the antivirus works. So those two things together should keep people from modifying your Defender, disabling it and getting around it. Okay? I don't know of a way to get around it. I'm sure there's some way to do it. Also, remember that we want to make sure that the machine is booting in a secured way. So make sure that you also in Intune have a compliance policy, and that compliance policy should check for secure boot, the early launch malware, and make sure that those are happening, because that's how we get to a boot state where we know we can trust all the stuff that loaded before Windows loaded and therefore before the antivirus loaded. Okay, that's very important. I see a lot of companies missing that. I have another video on that compliance. I'll try and put that in the description as well. But we have to make sure that the machines are booting to a safe state before we start doing all of this other stuff. All right, everybody, that's tamper protection. Remember, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.